A black photographer travels upstate to meet his white girlfriend's parents. He's nervous, hesitant, and wants to make a good impression. The family is nice enough, but there's an unspoken racial difference between them that is secretly an absolute nightmare, a century in the making, in the Oscar-winning 2017 horror flick Get Out. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
I'm Adam Johnson.
And I'm Mysia Pierce-Lewis.
And this is Filmgazm. Welcome to the Filmgazm podcast. Our best of the 2010 series continues with Adam's number 3, Jordan Peele's explosive 2017 directorial debut, Get Out. One of the few horror films in history to do some real damage at the Oscars. Adam, why did this make not just your list, but your top 3?
It's probably one of the most memorable first watches I've ever had in my life. I think I don't come from like a major like horror background. Like I didn't like grow up watching tons of horror movies and stuff like that. And this is a horror movie, but it has obviously tons of elements of different genres, which is part of the reason I like it. I just will never forget the first time I watched this and the conversations that it sprung up after it, not just with like the people I saw it with, which I'll get into in a little bit, but then the conversations with like the next kind of level of people. It's like, and then once ever, a lot of people saw it, it was like, okay, have you seen Get Out? Like, let's discuss this part. Let's discuss this part. And obviously, as like a white guy, like there's like a lot of things that like they're clearly aiming directly at at people who look like me, and which was like thought provoking and worthy of discussion. And I think movies that make you think and make me think are ones that I really kind of gravitate to. It's also just like very funny and it's like very affecting, and it has a little bit of everything for it. And for it to be a directorial debut from Jordan Peele it's just kind of mind blowing. So I think all those elements kind of played into why I have it so high on the list. It definitely was going to be in my top 10, but yeah, then I just kind of kept moving it up. And it's like, yep, nope, 3 feels right.
Actually, correction. I looked at the list. It didn't feel right. This is your number 2.
My number 2. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, Moonlight was
right.
Austin's 3,
and my 6.
Yeah. Okay. So all right, good. Yeah, this is your number 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. This is a very unique blend of genres that works to tell a very unique story that really just has like some real legs on it. I haven't seen like longevity like this in a long time. Like, especially these days, there's a lot of horror films, especially that are like one and done kind of. This movie stayed and it's not going anywhere. And I appreciate that. Mysia, why'd you choose this episode to jump in on?
Wow. Well, this movie, I love it. When I first saw it, it was great. All the others, several times, I can't even keep up the number of times I've seen it since. It illuminates new elements. It highlights like more undertones for me that maybe I noticed before, but notice it more pertinent in like the next watch. The commentary on race, particularly like the Black experience throughout the years and all the different layers of generational stuff. Some of the stuff that we face in the modern time, how that intertwines with past stuff, like just the nature and the climate at the time when it was released too was also like kind of highlighted in this as well. So this is such a great film in terms of talking about all those different topics and nuances, but also it's just such like a timeless film. Like I'm pretty sure, like I'm watching it now, 2023, reviewed it. I mean, completely different person I was in 2027 or 2017, but like there are a lot of messages that still resonate even today in like news right now that's actively happening. And I feel like this will be one of those films that will continue to have like a present message no matter what time frame you're watching it. It's always going to relate and connect, and I loved it. The humor, like Adam was saying, is like very much there. I think that's just the quality of all these films now, is just the humorous aspect of it to kind of cut into all the seriousness, because there's a lot of heavy stuff in this. Definitely. But I like heavy, I like deep, so this is just a win for me.
Me too. I like the heavy and deep too, but I think the humor is necessary, or else it would just be like, oh man, this is just so bleak, like it's almost like necessary in a movie like this. And I think Jordan Peele is a very funny guy, so it's like for him to make a movie that's true to himself, And he's a guy who comes from, the Key and Peele show. That's what his most notable contribution to the world before this. But it makes sense for it to be comedic because he is a comedic person, So, and I think another thing you hit on there, it rewards rewatchability. Like it just like that second, third, fourth, fifth time you watch, it's like, oh yeah, that, and then once you kind of know some of the twists and things like that, you can see the little clues, the breadcrumbs he lays out. It's brilliantly written. It really is like brilliantly written, and that's one thing that really stands out each time you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I do. It is interesting that this film is timeless, that it relates to so many different generations. I think that really speaks to like how trapped in a certain bubble we've been in this country for centuries in certain like social structures, that this film can be viewed as timeless. It's very strange.
Well, it's sad.
Yeah, very sad.
Is what it is. I mean, it's like it shouldn't be timeless. Like it's a shame that it's timeless.
Yeah. But I think in that and of itself is just a deeper illustration of the systemic nature of the topics that it's covering. Like that's how it's been maneuvering itself, is systemically. And so this movie, though it can like kind of span different time periods and still be relevant, I mean, that's the structure of systemic racism. It does the exact same thing. It just takes a different form.
That's how deep it is. Yeah.
Well, and also the racism in this movie is not overt. It's not angry. It's matter of fact, which is the scariest kind of racism, in my opinion. Just social, like not even realizing you're saying it kind of racism. Like your people have sure come a long way. Shit like that. And it's just, it's racism with a smile scares the shit out of me. Like way more than like, some guy with a fucking flaming cross. Like the guy who's going to like smile in your face and say some horrendous shit and not even realize they're saying it. And this movie captures that so fucking perfectly. It's I'm excited to get into this one.
Me too.
Yeah. But first, I do have a question for y'all. So, hypothetically, if President Obama had been able to run for a third term, would you have voted for him?
I mean, yeah, given the opponent,
I was gonna say,
yeah, no brainer. Yeah,
I love that. Just Bradley Whitford just being like, "Hey,
Yeah. Well, she warns him too, right? She like warns him like he's probably going to do the Obama vote for a third term, and then he does it. And how do you not, when you know that line's coming, how do you not just like lose it when he actually like uses it? Like if I was in that situation, I'd just be like, dude, what? Like you actually do say that? That's so crazy. But
yeah, I don't have a real question. I threw that in there because I was like, I have to ask that. But yeah, I would have voted for yeah, probably yeah. I liked him. Okay, Get Out was the longtime passion project of comedian Jordan Peele, who rose to fame alongside Keegan-Michael Key as the sketch comedy duo Key and Peele, which ran for 5 seasons. Peele felt that horror and comedy often went hand in hand with how they approached storytelling and pacing, and he had this kind of in like on the back burner for quite some time. And I love that horror and comedy are kind of like two sides of the same coin. There's certain elements in horror that are so outrageous that you can't help but laugh. And then like comedy can be violent and crazy sometimes, almost teetering on horror. It's interesting. Those two genres are like right next to each other.
Yeah, they do go hand in hand. I mean, it's like yeah, the term gallows humor, when it's like, I mean, they actually use it in Oppenheimer, right? Where they're taking the bets on like whether or not like the world's going to be destroyed by them like putting off this nuclear test. It's like in our moments of absolute like kind of fear, it's like the only thing that's sometimes to quell that is like, humor. And like that those reflexes that make us laugh is sometimes the same thing that scares us, So I actually think it makes kind of sense that they do kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Just like if you win the bet, like you don't win shit.
Right.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Peele was introduced to producer Sean McKittrick by his comedy partner Keegan-Michael Key in 2013. They were shooting a movie. Key was like, "Hey, this guy's a horror fanatic. He's got ideas," and they met for coffee. And Peele said, "Quote: Here's one you'll never want to make." and he pitched Get Out, and the guy was like fascinated. So he said, "All right, I'm going to buy the pitch. I'm going to pay you to write it." Peele turned out a draft in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
2 months. That's all it took to craft something this fucking perfect. I love that when you're thinking about an idea, about a concept for so long. I wonder if it's like easier or harder to put it on paper, because like there's people who crap out a screenplay in like 3 days, and sure, that's great, but like this was something he'd been thinking of for like a decade. I don't know, just different. People have different processes. Writers have different processes. I don't know if I could do that. I know I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think. Oh,
Go ahead, Maja.
I feel like this was a while ago now, but I think in one of the interviews that Peele had, like this came from his own experience, like because I think he's married to a white woman, so this was kind of paralleling his experience as a Black man, not only like being with a white woman and like that whole relationship and what that all entails in the public eye, but also just in general, like his experience in the industry, because he was doing a lot of Comedy Central stuff. He did Mad TV things, like, so he's been in the game for a little bit and has had those experiences along the way, just simply because he is a Black man and like a very white dominated industry, so I remember him kind of talking about like this is a reflection not solely of him, but definitely has aspects of his own personal experience. So I don't know if that could also contribute to the ease in which he wrote it and the speed, but I know for sure it's kind of like a self-reflective but also like universally reflective topic that he kind of made into this movie.
Is definitely probably easier when you're actually drawing from your own lived experiences. That's for sure. I wonder what his wife's parents thought of this.
Yeah. Well, he's married to Chelsea Peretti, the comedian.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, like, comedy runs deep in there in that, that couple. Who she's hilarious. Yeah. So that's like makes total sense that they would like hit it off. Yeah, what's the phrase they use this for? I've heard this for like, for bands or whatever, but it's like you have your entire life to write your first album, and then after that it's like you have like a year to kind of write the next one. So like you put everything into that kind of first one, and you're drawing off all of the experience and you're using the best stuff from like all the experience of your life so far. And then you got to repeat it, right? So it's like, and that's, I think, we'll maybe talk about Jordan Peele a little bit more, because this is still my favorite of his 3 movies that he's made. But I don't know. I think clearly it's drawn from some sort of personal experience, and I think the way he directs into Kaluuya is a real sign of that. But I also think, this is clear. Obviously, there's some stuff that's exaggerated, or let's hope it's exaggerated. This is.
I don't think there's a brain snatching cult going on in upstate New York. I don't think that's happening.
Let's hope. You never know though, given our country's history. So I think. Yeah, it's really cool to think of him just kind of sitting there like, oh yeah, remember that like ridiculous experience I had with that like microaggression. Let me put that in this movie. Like that's actually like pretty cool to think of him just putting that all together and like crafting this really cool story.
Yeah, definitely. It is very personal. I love that you've got your entire life to write your first album. I love that. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm just thinking back of like every writer and like director I love, like what their first movie was, and it's like, how personal was it? Like now I want to go research that shit.
Yeah.
So Get Out has an IMDb score of 7.8, Rotten Tomatoes score of 98%. There was a while, I remember when it first came out, they were advertising like 100% Tomatoes score. Like that was all over the place. And then like 2 assholes didn't like it. Now it's 98%. Audience score of 86%. Critics consensus reads, funny, scary, and thought-provoking, Get Out seamlessly weaves its trenchant social critiques into a brilliantly effective and entertaining horror comedy thrill ride. Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
The film is a huge success, grossing $255 million on a budget of only $4.5 million. It was nominated for 4 Oscars at the 90th Academy Awards. It ended up winning Best Original Screenplay, making Jordan Peele the first Black artist to win that Oscar. The film was also up for Best Director, Best Actor for Daniel Kaluuya, and Best Picture. Peele would follow Get Out with 2019's Us and 2022's Nope, and all 3 films have cemented Jordan Peele as one of the most creative horror filmmakers working today. Let's talk for a minute about Peele and his follow-ups. Us and Nope. Have you all seen both of those?
Yep.
All right. What are your thoughts? Because I didn't care for Us at all, but I loved Nope.
I've heard that a lot. And I liked Us. I think the only problem I had was like the ending. I was kind of like, okay, is that it? Like where do I go from here? Is this it?
That
Like
was
I get
me
it, but
too.
also is there more?
Yeah.
Because I felt like some aspect of the ending was lingering for me. Like it wanted to say more, and I'm like,
Yeah.
say it.
It was such a vast, crazy, hard to grasp concept that like I felt like I needed more. Like I felt like he only
Yeah.
scratched the surface of this insane world changing concept of like everyone on Earth has a mute doppelganger forced to follow their life physically. Like that's fucking crazy. And
Yeah.
I just I wanted more. It felt like the first act to a much better movie.
Right. Right. And then with Nope, like I also heard like a lot of people loved it. Like, oh my God, it's way better than Us. You know, honestly, the first time I saw it in the theaters, I was like, the very first time, like I was the opposing opinion, and I was like, I don't know if this is doing it for me. But then I saw it again, and I was like, okay, I'm present with this. But the first watch, I think the side story with the monkey, like as that was happening, I was like, okay, like I'm following you. I see how it's kind of interlacing, going in and out of these like subplots and all that. I get it. But then at the end, I was like, oh, so did we need all the extra monkey stuff? Like I get it, but it just initially it felt like it was leading me to a different ending than where I actually ended up.
Okay.
So it kind of felt like I got it, but some aspect of it felt unnecessary until I watched it again. And I was like, oh, okay. I
All right.
appreciate it.
No, yeah. The second watch of Nope, I was like, oh, this is like phenomenal. Yeah, like I agree with that. I was like, this is awesome. I liked Us too. I liked Us more again on the second watch as well. Us in theaters, I was a little underwhelmed. Really like one of the best trailers ever for Us. I just remember that trailer with with I got 5 on it, like little
Mhm.
remix. Like I was like, okay, I'm like, I can't wait for this. And you're so hyped that to get out. Like this is gonna be amazing. So I think everyone's expectations were probably just a tad too high. And again, it was like that kind of that like almost typical second album syndrome thing of just like, okay, this first one was so amazing. Like, how are you gonna follow that up? Ultimately, though, I think we're gonna look back at all three, and like the more I mean, obviously he's gonna put out more. I would hope, and be like, man, this guy just was like actually probably 3 for 3. Like none of these are ones where it's like, that's just a total miss. It's like you can find things about all three that are awesome and something you can kind of take away, and they're clearly like really personal. And I think
Mhm.
obviously, Nope is his homage to Spielberg and Spielberg type things, and so that clearly he's laying that on pretty thick there. And I think the through line of Kaluuya being in the first and third and being so good in both of them really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope had me at hello. I love alien horror, and that was something I had never thought of like ever seeing. Like the whole concept was so bonkers that it hooked me in pretty quickly. And
Mm.
I loved the side story with the monkey because stories about chimps going crazy and ripping people's faces off happen all the time, and they freak me out. And I loved the idea of that happening on like a sitcom stage. Like, holy shit, was that freaky? And the idea that the ship is actually like a living creature
Mhm.
was so mind blowing when it swallowed up Steven Yen and his like crowd. I was stunned. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I just didn't stop thinking about it. Yeah, Nope was great. And Us, I've given 2 tries now, and I can't get into that. It's now I know it's not gonna go in a direction that makes sense to me. So now it's like I'm already underwhelmed going in now. It's got its moments. Like Lupita Nyong'o is amazing in that movie,
Yeah, she is.
but it it feels like it feels like it's got first draft syndrome. Like he wanted every idea in there and didn't want to like didn't cut anything. But
Yeah, it actually feels a tad rushed, like for a second film. It's like I remember it came out like pretty shortly after,
yeah, 2 years.
first. So yeah, okay, 2 years. Yeah. So yeah, it feels like it was like, man, that was quick. And is that a totally fleshed out, thing? I think that's fair. Also, we have to shout out Kiki Palmer in Nope. We haven't said her name yet. Talking about the movie, she's so good. So
I
funny.
was
So
about
funny in that
to.
movie. Yeah, yeah. She is so funny in that movie. I really love to see her in more projects like that going forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am definitely a fan of Peele, and I want to see what he does next for sure. Did y'all catch any of his Twilight Zone?
I did not.
No, I don't think so.
I watched a couple of them, and I mean, it was okay. No one is ever gonna get the Twilight Zone right. Rod Serling got it in the 50s. Stop trying to step into his shoes. No one's gonna do it. But Peele had a couple good ideas. I stopped watching it, so it clearly didn't do a lot for me. But
we have, and you're a big Twilight Zone fan, so that's saying something. We kind of have our current Twilight Zone, right, with Black Mirror. Like I kind of think like that is right, like our Twilight Zone now. So that was a weird swing. I appreciate him taking that swing, but that was kind of a strange swing. That I just I don't know. As much as I like him, and I just didn't even give, and I do like some of the old Twilight Zone stuff. I just didn't even give it a chance, really. So shame on me, I guess.
It's an ambitious thing to take on. I mean, the Twilight Zone is pretty much like the beginning of horror and pop culture in America. It opened the doors for so many actors, so many writers, Richard Matheson for one, and just showed how creepy you could be while still being, okay for TV. And they tried to reboot it in the 70s and the 80s and 2010s, and it just never worked as well as it did. There was something so like old school, like, Red Scare unnerving about the Twilight Zone that just keeps it kind of locked in the 50s and 60s. I don't know. Maybe it's Rod Serling smoking a cigarette all the time. I don't know what it is, but it's I'm a purist with the Twilight Zone. But he tried, and I'm all for anthology series. I love anthology stuff. Just do your thing. You don't have to call it the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And I still haven't seen Black Mirror. I've had so many people tell me to check that out. I've yet to do it.
What are you doing, guy?
Wait, like never like a single episode?
I don't really know much. I know it's an anthology show. I don't know anything about it.
Wow, that's shocking. Yeah, that's shocking. That's shocking. Real quick.
Today.
real quick, Mysia, what's your favorite Black Mirror episode?
Oh, I don't. That's hard because then I saw the new season and I was like, oh wait, I like a lot of these episodes. But I think the one I always start, I don't know the name of it. It's from the earlier, I think it's like the first season. It's the one where they're in that simulation. They have to like run on the treadmill and stuff.
Okay, with Daniel Kaluuya.
Yes.
Yeah,
but I don't know
that one's
that's
called
one of my favorites.
15 Million Merits is what that's called.
Yeah.
Yes. That one's really good. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
That's the first time I ever saw Daniel Kaluuya was in that. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Look at him now.
You're right. Blowing up.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I have two that I always return to. San Junipero is really, really good. That's one with Mackenzie Davis, and it's kind of one of the only ones that has like a semi-happy ending. Spoiler alert, but it's like the simulation one where I don't want to say too much. And then Be Right Back, I really like. It's just like really thought provoking about the one where that girl's boyfriend dies and she like gets that it's Domhnall Gleeson and I'm blanking on her name. She's absolutely gorgeous. Haley Atwell are the two like leads, and he dies and he shares this like program that brings his body back, and then it uses all of his social media profiles to kind of like recreate him and like his personality, but it's all like the best version of himself because that's the only thing you post, right? So at first she's like, oh, this is beautiful, like I get this person back in my life, but then like he's kind of like flawless, and she's like, well, you lost what made you human. So that's a really cool like concept, and it's really well acted by those two. So I would go to those two, probably my favorites.
Yeah, those are good.
This is
Connor, you'd really like Black Mirror. Yeah.
Especially like the last episode of this recent season. Oh, that's up there.
Last one where it's like set in the past, like in the 70s, like in England.
Yes.
And like there's the like apocalypse thing.
That is my favorite. That's one of my new favorites.
That was fun.
I rewatched it like 3 times.
Yeah.
How many?
Have you seen every episode?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen every episode of it, Mysia?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, me too. Yeah, no, I'm really a big fan of Black Mirror. It's
yeah.
And there's some misses.
Some that were misses for me though.
Yes, big time. Yes, for sure.
How many seasons deep is this thing?
Ooh.
6 or 7, but some of them are like 3 episodes. They're like yeah.
And some of them are like movies, like they're specials.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like a one that was like an interactive thing?
Yeah.
Yes. Bandersnatch.
Yeah.
With Will Poulter.
How was that?
It's cool. It's a really unique idea.
I feel like that would get irritating. Like I don't want to. Hey, just tell me a story.
It's irritating as hell. Because I feel like it. Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I hope I don't. I don't think I'll give away. It kind of feels like it's leading you towards something instead of you like
Yeah,
experiencing what it wants you to experience. It's one of those games that like, sure, you have free choice, but also we're trying to get you to a certain outcome.
Okay, so like you can't fuck up and ruin the ending. Because that's what I thought. Like if you go
Not
this way, like
completely.
somebody dies and then it's just over.
I mean, it's like one of those video games where like, no, I'm serious. It's like one of those video
Yeah.
games where like,
Yeah.
oh, choose your thing, and you
Yeah.
choose the thing, and it'll like kind of lead you, but then it'll be like, oh no, like it's trying to guide you essentially.
Okay.
You can do the other thing, but it's gonna be like, nope, and then do it again.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
there are 27 episodes of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
All
There's
right.
6 seasons technically, but some of them are 5, some of them are 6, some of them are 3. So
Yeah.
27 total. There's as I'm kind of looking through the seasons, there's some that are like really, really good, and then some that I just like will never watch again. But that's what's cool. They all take a swing, so it's cool.
All right. Cool. Yeah. All right. I'll put that. I have a giant list of TV shows, but I will move that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, let's give Get Out some awards.
Sounds good.
Let's start with best line.
You take it, Connor.
Oh, okay. All right. For me, it's the last line of the movie. After all this shit has gone down and Chris has, taken care of business, the sirens go and you're like, your heart sinks. You're like, fuck. And then it's Rod. They get in the car. They just sit there quietly for a little bit. And then Rod just has to he goes, I mean, I told you not to get in that house. And he's like, how'd you find me? And Rod just looks him in the eye and goes, I'm TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. That's what we do. Consider the situation fucking handled. Like, fucking yes. God damn, what a satisfying ending to this thing. Just like, fuck yeah. I've never cheered for TSA in my life, ever. But right there is like, yeah, fucking TSA. It's great. It's so great. And I love that this ends on a moment of levity after the fucking carnage we just witnessed. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I want to get into, maybe not, we don't have to do it right now, but yeah, the psychology of the flashing lights coming up to like rescue, right? Like, the theater that I was in, it's so funny to see like who laughed at it, who gasped, who was like, oh no, all of that is like the psychology of that, I think is like so smart.
Well, have y'all seen Peele's like alternate ending?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Well, basically, Adam, it is the cops, and Chris does get arrested.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that would have been a very different movie.
Yeah, I think it would have really like pissed everyone off. I don't think this would have had the legs it had if they had ended on such a dour note. After all that shit, he goes to prison for like 5 murders.
Yeah, but that's I mean, I don't know. Like in many places, that's more realistic.
Yeah, but this is horror. It's a movie where people are taking black people's brains and white people's brains, putting them in the black people's bodies.
Yeah,
we abandoned realism a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he stuck with the ending he had.
Yeah, I think it ties into the comedic relief of it, because if it were to be so realistic as to what we know, it would have been, or at least for me, I'll speak on my own experience. I feel like it would have been like, oh, really again? Like, like we did all this just to end up here yet again. So yeah, it would have been a downer, but I think the comedy of it, especially with TSA, because no one really gives a shit about TSA like that. It lifts that, it alleviates some of that tension that's been held the entirety of the ending. Like, I mean, because you're like, is he gonna die? So the people trying to get him, like we're rooting for him to stay alive, and so it eases that tension a little bit for the audience, which is necessary. Because if not, it would have been a downer, especially as if the movie was just released and this is us watching it on the screen for the first time. That would have been hard to.
Oh, brutal. Yeah. It would have been horrible. Yeah, just like wow. Yeah, just like despite all this, like all this, it's like, yep, no, we still can't win. Like, it would have been like, man, yeah, this is bleak. This is bleak. So, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Who's going next? Do you want it, Mysia?
Sure. Well, I had one and I couldn't find it, and then I got lazy and I was like, I don't want to rewind this whole movie. But I can't remember if the dad said it or if Jeremy, the brother of the
Oh,
white family, said it. But I
Jeremy.
know there was a line that was essentially saying, like, oh, with your physique, like your bodies, and with our determination, we would be like essentially unstoppable. And I feel like that was during the auction portion. So it had to have been Dean Armitage, right? Armitage. Um,
Armitage. Yeah.
so that was a line that stuck out to me for a number of reasons. But I couldn't find it, so I don't want to dive into that. But I will use one that like I can actually find and like say. It's still the dad saying this, and it's that whole little spiel that he's giving after they had killed the deer, and he's like, "Well, I don't like deer anyway." So he's like, "You know what I say? I say one down, a couple 100,000 to go. I don't mean to get on my high horse, but I'm telling you, I do not like deer. I'm sick of it. They're taking over. They're like rats. They're destroying the ecosystem. I see a dead deer on the side of the road, and I think that's a start."
Mm.
So that was loaded.
Subtle.
To say
It
the
was
least.
so loaded.
Yeah.
And that, for whatever reason, a lot of the things that he in particular was saying was sticking out to me this watch time for me.
Me too. Me too.
And that line in particular, because it was just like, oh, there we are with the little micro kind of macro aggression thing that you're saying right now, and like the really overt racism that's happening that you're trying to like kind of cover up. Because a lot of those sentiments that he said, like I have either heard it out in the ether in the world as I experience it, have heard it kind of be said a little bit to me, maybe even indirectly or sometimes directly. Like a lot of these comments are very pertinent. And so I think just tying that into the symbolism of the deer, because deers are usually supposed to be more like pure, you know, like I think Bambi and stuff. It's all cute and
Mhm.
pure and innocent. And then for
Docile.
it to get slaughtered like that, it's sacrificial.
Yeah.
And so there's so many pieces of symbolism within that. And so for him to say this, and then to see Daniel's character literally, I mean, he is the lamb. Like it's like he is the little fawn stuck in like a whole thing of wolves and he doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
So it's just there's a lot that's buried into that in real life within the movie, and it just that for me, like I don't know, that hit me differently this time around.
Yeah. And then of course, the poetic justice of Dean actually getting impaled on antlers.
Right? Right.
Yeah.
You gotta love
Well,
some not so subtle, just bam in your face fucking imagery. I love it.
well, and not just impaled by antlers, but impaled by antlers on a deer that he used. It was a trophy, right? It's like, oh, I shot this thing, I put it on my wall, I own this thing, just like he feels like he owns a lot of these like black bodies, right? He like I'm gonna take and yeah, so yeah, the act of that getting taken down and then used to kill him is like perfect, I mean, that's really, really, it's like it's one of those first times in the movie where you're just like, yes, finally, like yeah, like justice, like for this just like maniac, this like total just like yeah, sociopath. But the deer thing, I thought about the deer thing so much this time for some reason because the
Yeah.
way they hit it, like it's such a strangely shot scene. Like the deer's almost like athletic, right? Like it like jumps over and like hits the car almost like rather than the car hitting it. It's like it's a really strangely shot scene, and it also like it clearly lingers in Daniel Kaluuya's. Why do I keep blanking on his character's name? Daniel Kaluuya's character's mind, like it's like he can't escape it, right? He has a dream about it. He kind of goes back and looks for it. It's like, oh man, it's like there's something about it that just like he's like relating to in some way, right? And he's like he doesn't know he's about to be kind of like you said, like the deer. I think that's really smartly pointed out. But yeah,
Well, I wonder how much of that is just straight empathy, which is something
yeah,
that every other character that he encounters completely lacks.
does
There's
not
no
have right,
sense of humanity. You do this shit long enough, you erase any kind of humanity you have inside of you. And
right,
he is
right,
still a person with
yeah,
feelings and thoughts and identity. So the only one left for him to relate to in this movie is the deer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A non-human. It's really sad.
Very, yeah. What do you got?
Okay, mine's not like funny. It's actually like it's really horrible and like kind of gross. But it's kind of the first time where like I think okay, we gotta quit saying what is his character's name? Why are we all blanking on that? Danny Kaluuya's character.
Chris.
Oh, Chris.
Chris. Um Chris realizes like, oh, there's not something like wrong here. This is about to be something like yeah, medieval almost. it's that one character, that like kind of Colonel Sanders looking character with like the mustache and weird little thing,
Mhm.
and he just with like a totally straight face, he's like, fair skin has been in favor for what, the past hundreds of years, but now the pendulum has swung back. Black is in fashion, and it's like
Yeah.
so like, man, it just gave me chills this time when I watched it. I was just like, wow, like this, and this guy's delivering this line to a black man as if it's just like this totally normal thing to say. It's just like, what? Like, yeah, it's just like absolutely mind blowing. And so it's the first time where like you really are like, okay, this is, obviously you have clues and there's little things, and if you're a savvy enough kind of like social critic, like he's clearly making, like to me the Jesse Owens line, like you said, Mysia, a lot of the things that the dad said, the Jesse Owens line when he's like showing him that photo of like, I guess his dad who like ran, which the timeline on that is his dad ran against Jesse Owens. That was in 1936. That was his dad. That seems like a little bit off.
Well, I mean, how old was dad when he got put in that body? I mean, it could have been like
Right.
80, 90.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, well, he'd have to be like 90 because
Yeah.
it's 2016, right? This is being, like shot and filmed. And so and clearly they're referencing, yeah, elections and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, that line stuck out to me too, the Jesse Owens one. But yeah, it's like you have these little clues, but that's the first time where I'm like, oh man, these people like just shamelessly like trying to, this is like some sort of like auction. Like it's like, yeah, that's like kind of like the clue and like where the movie really shifts, for me. And that character is just like so vile without, while looking pretty just like standard, there's like this standard kind of like, average looking, white dude. Yeah, that comes out of his mouth and it's just like, wow, this is bleak.
Well, it also with that line also made me think like they're so casual about it. Like, how many times have they
Exactly.
done this?
Mhm.
Exactly.
And I think for me though, like watching it, that wasn't a shock. Like that wasn't shocking because like I encountered that. Like
Mm,
I experienced that. So it for me watching this film, it seemed as though it was like a direct reflection of my lived experience as well as other people who have similar lived experiences as well. So it was more of a validation, if you will, of like, yeah, finally I experienced this thing, and like like this film is able to kind of like illustrate that in a way that encapsulates all of the stuff that I had to deal with, the stuff that I couldn't explain. I didn't know how to like actually counteract or
mm,
confront as it was happening, or had to think about, damn, did they just say that to me? Like, and had to process it after the fact because I myself was unaware, or didn't know what do I do with that information? Like, how do I stand up for myself in the situation? Or even if I do, like, how will it be received? Because these people clearly aren't in the place to be receptive because they are saying the stuff in the first place. So it's just,
mm.
for me, it was more of a validation of stuff that I've experienced.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's why I'm so glad you're like on this episode, because like there's one thing if it's just like, Connor and I or me and Austin or whatever talking about this as like kind of two white guys, like this is not written for me, you know what I mean? Like this is written. I mean, well, maybe it's written for me to see for sure, but like but it's not, this is not my experience, like I can never, as much as I try to empathize and I really do, I don't have to experience this. Like I'm ridiculously lucky. I'm a white guy in America. You know what I mean? Like that is like the easiest way. We have the easier than anybody ever, in like the history of the world. So like it's so cool to hear that perspective. And it's just be like, oh yeah, like I have to deal with this like nonstop. And really, since both having black siblings and watching movies like this and hearing from friends that I have that have to deal with like this nonsense, and especially around the time of like kind of a lot of the George Floyd stuff, it's like your eyes are just open to just like how often lines like this are uttered that are just like in just like everyday life that like, for someone like you just had to like just deal with, and like I hear it, I'm like, what the heck, that's so crazy that person said that, and you're just like, yeah, no, like welcome to the world, like so it's really like good to hear that from in one perspective that like I'm able to learn that, but it's really sad to hear because it's like that's ridiculous that you have to go through that.
Right.
I mean, it continuously blows my mind that it is so business as usual for some people that like that
Mm-hmm.
kind of shit and dealing with that kind of prejudice on a daily basis. And then you've got, other people who continuously say, sing this country's praises and like, like I had a whole what was it? There was a conversation I had in grad school about the founding fathers. And like I read this book that basically said like the founding fathers used the threat of a slave uprising to entice a militia that was built up to, and then that ended up being like the backbone of the American army, the revolutionary, the what do they call it? The Continental Army. So basically, our nation's first war was built on a complete lie to get white people to feel unsafe. And I argued this, and my teacher fought back of like, whoa, you can't say things like that about the founding fathers. And I'm like, why not? They were slave owning white rich assholes who only wanted their class to be able to vote. Like, why are we splitting hairs here? And I got into a big argument with my teacher, and I remember thinking like, this is bullshit. She did not like me. But yeah, it was like, I think about that all the time. Just like, in the beginning, there was that complete divide and anger and rage and like just classist nonsense, and that's never gone away. We just act like it has.
Yeah. Or yeah, we don't want to confront that, or like we don't want to admit like who wants to sit there and admit that like, oh yeah, there's tons of like racist stuff that goes on in my country. Like nobody like wants to admit that. It's like you'd much rather, you want to believe that you live in a place that is like free for all and open. It's like, but it's like not like, we need to confront this, or else like it's never going to get better. And usually when people are confronting it, it's not from a place of like, oh, we suck. It's like, I'm confronting this so that it gets better, right? Because like I actually want it to be better. I do like this place, but it can be better.
It's dangerously unhealthy to act like everything is always amazing sunshine and lollipops. That's fucking psychotic. You have to confront actual problems with actual solutions and actually actively try to be better, or else nothing's ever going to change in any capacity.
Well, and even admit that they're problems in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. That's the part that fucking trips me up the most, is like, there are people actively trying to erase our nation's history, erase the bad parts of history so that like we look like such great heroes, when in fact we've fucking never been heroes.
I mean, it's a lot easier to be in denial and to hide it, because you are like, especially those who are not on the receiving end of this, because they know there's no way that you can go around not knowing like what certain demographics of people experience.
You just put blinders on and just ignore it.
Right. And so it's easier because, I mean, they already benefit. They already don't have to do the thing. So if they just continue not to address it, and then to kind of like coax their own sense of well-being and their own emotions and their own feelings to feel good about themselves in the process, then yeah, they're not going to be affected by it at all. And they can just go on about their lives feeling happy and having this like sense of positivity when it really is just turning a blind eye to the reality of the situation, and then also preventing them from taking accountability and kind of like ridding themselves of this white fragility.
Why shake up the status quo when you could risk impacting your own happy little lily white life in any capacity? It's so fucking selfish and crazy to me. Like, I don't have any of that in my, I was raised by, in a multiracial kind family, and I have, empathy and fucking eyes, and I can see what's going on out there. And you look through history and you can see it everywhere. And we continue to just fucking sweep it under the rug and act like we're we're king shit of fuck mountain. And I'm so tired of
that. Yeah. It's an ignorance is bliss mentality, which is a real shame. And so, but I mean, Connor, for people like you and I, like who don't have to deal with this as much, but we did grow up in diverse, households and friendships and families. And that was understanding. And that's huge. That's the reason I think we are as empathetic as we are. But there are plenty of people who are not. And there's like a world that I live in, like now that I coach in, I guess, that where a lot of those families are not like that. They're not diverse. They're not understanding and empathetic. And so, I battle this all the time. I'm like, I deal with these kids who I'm really trying to show them this kind of like different side of kind of like the world and life and stuff like that they're not necessarily getting at home. And it's like, it's not the kid's fault, like this is racism is a taught thing. Like you don't come out of the womb racist. You know what I mean? Like that's a learned behavior. And so they'll make little comments and I correct them, and it's like, hey, like, what you said, that wasn't that bad, but can you see how that mentality, or whether it's like a neighborhood we go to, because this is a pretty like affluent school that I coach at. We go to a neighborhood and it's like, oh, this is, it's like just because it's not gated and like, doesn't mean it's, like bad, or, like they just don't quite, it's not the kids' fault, like I never really blame the kids, but it's like, I just get really frustrated sometimes with the parents at this school of just like, man, they never really expose them to anything but their little bubble that they're in. That's going to be really detrimental later in life. And that's what leads to the lack of empathy and leads to things like, oh, this isn't just like how I grew up. Like this is wrong, or this is bad, Different equals bad, and that's a tough to a lot of these people. It's a tough thing to battle, but I do like at least make the attempt. It's tough, like, but it's important too. No, but I think this movie like creates these conversations, which is why I think it's so high on my list.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that you're in a unique position to actively fight a lot of this mentality. And yeah, obviously you got to be delicate about it.
For sure.
Dealing with generations
Well,
of racial trauma and like or lack thereof. It's hard to balance around that.
Well, and delicate for two reasons, right? Because like true empathy is not just being able to empathize with like people who see the world like probably the three of us do, and like, but also being able to empathize with someone who does not. Like that's actual empathy. Like I think there is this like trend of like, oh, I empathize, but I only really empathize with people who are kind of like put down on. I don't, oh, you voted for this person. I don't even associate with you. Like that's not actually empathy, right?
There's a very distinct difference between understanding somebody's position and agreeing with it, for sure.
Exactly.
And a lot that gets lost all the fucking time.
Yeah. And how do you actually change anyone's mind if you just like, oh, you believe this like one thing about this one aspect of like politics, I can't associate with you. It's like, okay, well, like then you're never gonna help them. Like you're never gonna change that mind. Like that's gone. That chance is now over, right? You've burned that bridge. Like, so there are times where I'll hear people say things. Not I'll correct, or I'll say what I believe about something, but maybe it's not as harsh as I want it to be. But it's like, okay, but if I'm go real harsh right now, this relationship is over, and this person's mind is never being changed. Yeah. You have it takes time. It takes time. It's like it's just small. You just chip away, right, and then you hope on that 100th hit it cracks.
But isn't there like a point where there's a certain
there's
a certain point where like somebody is so far gone
that's not even worth it.
They almost can't be saved.
Yeah.
And that has sprung up a lot since 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There's not really like we're not going to fix this right now, but no. It's worth talking about because of how connected it is to this film.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that just goes to show, like how I was saying earlier, how so systematically entrenched this line of thinking and behavior in our way of life is and has been like for centuries. I mean, like there are still laws that are still technically intact that have not been removed that uphold a lot of these Jim Crow era things. Like they just are. I mean, like just as recent as 2014, I think it was in Mississippi, they still had segregated prom. They had just, I think, stopped it. Like it was still legal. They had never removed it, never touched it. Sure, we went through civil rights. And so I think that's why films like this really kind of bring up to the forefront like the truth and the reality of it. And then we're able to kind of also, I guess, play on these different perspectives, not only within the characters in the film, but also the audience members who are watching it, and kind of seeing life imitate art imitate life kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because it's real, like stuff like this, like sure, a lot of the things that they're saying, I mean, even if you really want to get down to it, the scenes with the auctions and Get Out, I mean, it was slavery. They were literally auctioning off people's bodies.
A body, yeah.
Like on purpose, like, oh, do they have the stamina? Are they strong enough? Hey, do they have the tenacity to do this thing? Like, what's their height looking like? Like they did this on purpose. So, I mean, and this is modern time, 2017, and they're auctioning off for a similar reason. You had the woman asking, like, is it true? Is it bigger? Is it better? Kind of thing. A lot of the sexualization, the hypersexualization of Black bodies, Black women.
That line was crazy. Yeah, it's just like, what? Yeah,
I mean, that's stuff that still continues to this day. So it's just, it's so deeply entrenched, and it hasn't actually been properly resolved or talked about or handled, which is why we keep facing the same issues time and time again. Like history will repeat itself constantly, even in a film, if you do not address like the deeper root issue. And if we keep continuing to turn a blind eye to it, it's going to just be ever more prevalent. It's just going to be hidden in a different way, in a different method.
There's three like little prongs to that I have like, I mean, a lot of thoughts on me. Obviously this is a movie podcast, but like I think this movie warrants conversations like this. So there's one about the kind of like the bodies and like I think you said earlier, the dad said something about like, oh, if we can get like our determinations and like our mentality with like those bodies, that idea that like, oh, this Black man, this person from African descent, this person whatever has a physical advantage that hey, I can do all the training in the world, but like, they just have this advantage. And, I feel that at like places I've coached before of like, we'll play this like all black school, and it's like I'll have either parents or kids that I coach that are defeated before the game even starts because they're just like, oh, they're all black, like they're gonna beat us. And it's like, that's racist. What you just said, like, you have reduced this person to like, oh, they're black, they must be good at basketball, therefore like we're gonna lose, and we are not, and you're also like lowering yourself for like no reason at all, really. It's like I've seen all white teams that are amazing, I've seen all black teams that are terrible, and I've seen all black teams that are amazing, I've seen all white teams that are amazing too. It's like that it doesn't matter. Like, you cannot just look at a person and say they look like this, therefore they must be good at this. Like, that is in itself racist, right? You've reduced them to just like an athletic ability rather than just like a human being. So I've tried to battle that a bunch, and so that's a heavy theme in this movie that I didn't catch the first time, and that's when the Jesse Owens thing, like, really, because he was like, yeah, he just lost to Jesse Owens, no shame in that, just like this superior athlete. It's like, no, Jesse Owens worked hard, right? Like, he earned the right to be that good at that sport. It wasn't just like this God-given ability. It's like, I'll hear that a lot. Like, these kids I train, it's like, hey, my daughter's pretty good, but like, this girl that she played against, she just has that God-given ability. It's like, no, that girl works really hard, just like your daughter does. She just happens to be better, like, it's not because she's not better because she's black. She's better because she's just better at basketball. That's it, like, and I'll hear little things like that all the time. And it really bothers me. That's kind of like the first prong of like those things that you were talking about there, that I just like, I feel like, keenly. And then there's another one where, I don't know if I should share this. Probably not. Y'all, you want to go? I'll take the take the mic, because it's relatively close to me. This dad that he grew up in a different country. Yeah. I better not share.
Okay, when we're done, I want to hear that.
I'll share it with you two at the
Hey.
end for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess like just a quick bit to tie into that. I mean, a lot of that, what you're talking about, like especially looking at the bodies, the physicality, the agility and ability of Black people, a lot of that is rooted in eugenics, and that was like completely established on like false bias racist ideologies that would purposefully put white people or like Aryan race people at a superior vantage point scientifically, and that shit wasn't scientific at all. It was very far from it. But we still have a tendency to base a lot of our medical information on eugenics still to this day. And so, I mean, even beyond just like the physicality and the agility of like Black people and Black bodies, like in sports, for example, but even simply just in the general medical field, it's like, oh, Black people are more prone to heart disease or this or that. And it's like, I wonder why, because there is a deeper systemic reason why we are more prone to these diseases, especially if we're forced and set on certain diets that are not made for us and that weren't made for us in the beginning, and then systemically have issues with food insecurity. So this film is just bringing up so much stuff that is just so pertinent to reality. It's hard for you, like you said, not to talk about it. It's hard for you not to pinpoint all the minute details, because every single detail in here is real as hell and can be tied to now or to then, and probably to beyond, unfortunately.
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 And there was a study recently that this guy did about the video game FIFA, like the soccer video game, which I play all the time, where they like the game, not necessarily the makers of the game, but people who would like create players and stuff like that. When they would create Black players, their strength and speed and like stamina, they would always like inherently just make it higher. Like the ratings would be higher than they would have like the same position player and like a white counterpart. Whereas like the white player might have more like their awareness rating would be higher, and it's like, man, that's crazy. It's like that, deep seated, that like this like video game, when these like generically created players are like it's like kind of racist, and African players often get boxed into like playing these really physical roles, where it's like a central midfielder or these like big defenders, rather than like a number 10, which is like kind of a attacking midfielder, which is the more kind of like cerebral player. Like, you'll see these there's very few African players who get to play in that role, because the scouts that have, these European scouts for centuries and, for decades and decades, have just like looked at the body and been like, oh, that's like a big like Black body. I'll put it in this certain position. Like, regardless of how smart the player is, it's like, they look like this, they should play in this position. It's like, it's crazy, like how like far this stuff goes.
It's deep. Talk about generational trauma. I mean, that's part of it. That's entrenched.
It is wild how many like horseshit pseudosciences white people have created out of their ass to try to explain why some chubby white dude like is not going to jump as high. as a black person who works out every day of his life.
Yeah.
Like fucking, you guys remember phrenology, which we'll probably talk about at length next week. Oh my god, yeah, fucking skull dimples. Shut the fuck up.
And the extra bone theory, right? That's a big one. Like, yeah, the extra bone. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Next award. Next award.
yeah, we could talk about this for fucking days.
Yep.
Music moment. This is a very interesting score. Some good needle drops. Interested to see where y'all went. I guess I'll take it first. Keep that going. The start of the opening credits, right after Lakeith Stanfield gets snatched, there's this like string bit of music that scares the fuck out of me. Strings in a horror score are nightmare inducing every single time. And as soon as I start hearing that, I get chills, I tense up, and the viewing experience is different. And I love how this movie immediately sends you into be fucking afraid.
Yeah.
Just, you don't on first viewing, you don't really know why yet. You just know that you are supposed to be unsettled, and the movie puts you in that position very early on and doesn't let you go. And I love that. That's what a good horror movie does. It grabs you, it holds you down, and makes you feel what it's telling you to feel.
Yeah.
That's really like, yeah, sharply observed there. I think also like that scene stuck with me more this time, the opening where he's walking around that neighborhood that he doesn't know, right? So like, but it's a nice neighborhood, right? It's a nice neighborhood, right? In quotes, I'm putting in quotes, like where it's like it's affluent. So like there's a certain viewer that would watch that and be like, oh, he's got nothing to worry about. Like he's in a nice neighborhood, like he should have nothing to worry about. But like he has his life to worry about, right? And he knows that, and I'm sure there's plenty of viewers that watching that that don't look like me that know that as well. But it's like, the way it kind of like subverts that like trope of like, okay, what if we flip this and it was like, a white guy walking through, like a totally like Asian neighborhood in San Francisco, right? Let's use that. Whereas like the fear that guy might feel. So like a white viewer watching that would be like, oh, I understand why he's fearful. Like he's in a place that he doesn't know, and this is like totally unknown. It's so funny that he can kind of like flip that, and he plays with like the audience so much in this movie. And I think he sets a tone right there. And the way that car like whips around, you just know it's like, oh man, like, and obviously we know it's a horror movie, so it's like, okay, there's probably something bad gonna happen. There's also a scenario that in life where that plays out, where that guy is looking for a party and he finds it, right? He just goes to the party and that's it, and life goes on. But for so many people that's not the case, right? That's where like something really like dark and terrible, can happen to you. So no, that scene stood out to me more this time for some reason. I don't know. It's like it really lingered with me, and maybe it was the music.
Yeah. Well, also Peele, he intentionally, subverted expectations. He said it was partially inspired by the opening scene of Halloween.
Okay.
Which is cool. Like it's definitely a like, you think you're gonna see this movie, but actually you're watching this movie. Which right from the get-go, it makes you feel unsafe. It makes you feel unsure of events, how they're gonna unfold, and just puts you in a very real sense of like tension. And that's just smart filmmaking.
Yeah, and I think that song in particular that you pointed out, I don't know why every time I watch it and the opening scene starts and I hear that song, I'm just like, I think of Insidious, the Tiptoe Through the Tulip song. I feel like that should be played. I don't know why, but it reminds me of that. Like, and so, but then I listened more closely to this song, and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, it's okay. That Insidious one is terrible. But yeah, so I guess that's a good one. For me, it's just, I gotta stay true, stay on top of my R&B. I love me some Redbone, that Childish Gambino. Like I feel like I don't know, Peele has a way of adding music that resonates, but also kind of holds some weight. There's always some message in it, whether he's slowing down, I got 5 on it, or he's doing Redbone. And like literally the main quote that he plays is, now stay woke.
Stay woke. Yep.
And so like
Perfect.
that's important because in so many ways, because stay aware of what's going on, but then also literally stay woke because this dude is getting hypnotized. Like, so try to stay in reality here. So there's a lot of like little innuendos going on, little like subtleties that I love. Yeah, so I think that stood out for me.
Peele is one of those filmmakers who is so obviously in control of every moment of his film. Every little detail was thought about, and I really do appreciate a filmmaker like that. I don't like these guys who just point a camera and hope for the best. I like the guys who have like, this has to go here, this has to play at this moment, this part of the song has to be slowed down. He has to look over there very slightly. It makes, it creates like a painting, like a moving painting. It's art.
No, that's a great pick. I mean, yeah, it's almost like I know I'm sure there's a part of you that's like, this feels like a little bit obvious, but it's like it's awesome. It's a great pick. It's like that's such a perfect song for this movie, and really, it's pretty rare that you get songs that came out. I mean, that came out in November. It was November 17th, 2016. This movie was in February of 2017. You very rarely get songs that are that popular or movies that quickly. And so that's pretty cool. That like I think Donald Glover probably was like, yeah, man, go for it. Like I see what you're using it for. Like that's really cool to think that they kind of worked hand in hand on that, because that's a perfect song for this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went with kind of a more random one. I kind of forgot about this scene until I watched it recently for this. It's the scene when Allison Williams' character puts on the headphones and is like then scouting like her next like victim, and she's playing "I've Had the Time of My Life" in their headphones, eating one Fruit Loop. Like that's just like what a ridiculous scene. And then she takes that like very small, like sip of milk, and it's like this monster who like just did this terrible thing to this person is now just like like looking for her next victim, and she's playing a song that the words of the song are "I've had the time of my life." Like just the lack of like awareness of just like how crazy what she just did is. It's like that's when that's the first time you see her. I mean, obviously, the keys thing is when you realize like, oh man, she's like really like, you maybe have ideas that she's kind of involved, but where you really realize she's involved. But that's when you see that she's like just a straight up villain. Like she's just a straight up evil, like kind of like monstrous villain. And it's also like funny. It's just like that's such a funny choice for a song. And that's very Jordan Peele.
Well, I also love the image of like she has separated the white milk and the colored cereal.
Yes.
Like
So smart.
It's racism on such a deep, crazy
Yep.
fucking level.
Can't be together. Yep.
Unreal. Like, yeah, it's so sadistic and twisted that the more you learn about her, the scarier she fucking gets in this movie. I love it.
The first time y'all saw this movie, did you think she was a part of it all along?
I had suspected it at some point, like maybe toward not in the very beginning, but maybe toward like middle where it gets closer to telling you. I was like, ooh, she not right.
Well, what was my clue was the interaction with the cop.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, like she does, she doth protest too much, like it's like, all right, like you're trying to be, it's like I get what you're doing, you're trying to stand up, and like obviously like there was no reason for that guy to like check his ID or whatever, but it's like it also was like a relatively harmless thing, but she was just like, oh no, like you don't have to do that, it's like okay, like are you trying to do the whole like look how woke I am thing? Yeah. Yes, and I was like, okay, maybe there's something here.
Yeah, she just doesn't want law enforcement to know his name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I started to have suspicions around the dinner scene where like, Jeremy starts getting a little hyper. I started thinking like she would not take her boyfriend to these people if this was real. Like she'd had to have known.
Right.
You start to you get wise around that part, and you're like, yeah, okay, he's in a bad, he's in a tight spot.
Yep.
That tight spot.
She got it.
In this case, do not seek the treasure.
Oh my god, RUNNOFT as fast as possible. All right, performance. It's a no-brainer for me, but who'd you all go with? For me, this is Kaluuya's movie. No one's taking it from him.
Yeah. Danny Kaluuya. Yep.
Same, but also with that though, I do like Williams.
She's
Allison
good.
Williams,
She
played
good.
that part very well.
She did.
Too damn well, if you ask me. But she was like believable and convincing. Very. And like she rode that wave even till the end where the family's like ready to beat his ass. And she's like, oh my God, I can't find my keys. Like that's dedication right there.
Yeah. No, she stood out to me this time too. I'm like, oh yeah, like we've never probably given her flowers for this performance, but no, Kaluuya, it's like, I mean, the movie rests on his shoulders, and he
Of
just
course.
absolutely delivers. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The moment between the two of them, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on anyone's scene here, but it's too good. It's when she is like hunting the keys, and Chris is just looking more and more agitated. He's starting to realize like, I'm not getting out of here, and then she just holds up the keys, and he just like throws his bag on the ground, like there's no protest. He's just like, I fucking
Yeah.
lost. I'm gonna die here. He just accepts it, and it's
Yeah.
so unnerving. You don't see that in horror. Like usually the fight to survive is like in that moment, but Peele subverts that and just has our hero give up. Both they just play off each other so great. For me, I want to spotlight Lakeith Stanfield. It's one scene for the most part. You've got that bit at the beginning, but then the scene at the garden party where he like breaks free. The subtlety in his face in that moment where you can see it immediately, just like go from like the white guy to who he really is. I love that bit of shift. It's such a brilliant bit of performance that doesn't get enough laurels, I don't think.
Yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield is awesome. And have y'all watched Atlanta?
No.
Yeah.
Show? Okay. So I love that like we get Lakeith Stanfield, and then we get a Donald Glover song like as their little connection for Darius and Ern. Atlanta, God, genius show. Just so good.
So many. Have you guys seen Sorry to Bother You?
Yes.
So many of the Letterboxd reviews were like, Lakeith Stanfield needs to use his white voice. Like shit like that. Was...
Yeah.
Great.
No, he's
a positive
crazy.
thing. Because like with that scene though, I don't know why it just dawned on me now, but it also reminded me of code switching. So I understand like the entire point of this is like, Black people being used as vessels for other white people trying to like kind of continue out their lives. But it also reminded me of like how people code switch in those environments. And like even if you are around someone who like relates to you or maybe from like same demographic or community or whatever, if you are trying to maintain a particular status quo or connection to like the greater population, you tend to have a disconnect from the other person that you're like, hey, bro, like I thought we was in this together kind of thing. Like I thought we had a connection. So the whole little scene where he tried to do the handshake thing, like dap him up, and he was like, yeah, I got you, buddy. Like, yeah. I mean, that code switching popped up when you guys were talking about that. So
that's a bigger part of this movie, I think, than I remembered too. Like, that concept, and and just how he's dressed too, right? It's like it's this absurd like outfit. It's like this carnival outfit almost. Code switching is something it's like so fascinating. Like I help coach the girls and boys varsity team at the school I'm at, and both of our head coaches are Black. And our boys coach and our girls coach, and I get along like really, really well with both of them. And like we'll go to breakfast and like after practice and stuff like that, and I'll see it's like the second we get off the campus, I'll see this switch, and they're like way more comfortable, And it's like, man, I've told them before, man, I hate that you guys have to do this because like you're not able to fully be like yourself. Like I walk into the school and I'm just myself completely all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm just always able to be myself, and they feel like there's parts of themselves that they have to kind of turn off or tone down, right? Or become more right because the school that I'm at is primarily white. So I've told them this before. I was like, man, like I understand, why you guys feel like you have to do that. I hate that. I think that's like such a shame. And they're just like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like they almost like don't even. It's like they obviously care, but they're just kind of like, it's just this is life, Like this is what we got to do to kind of survive in this little world that we've found ourselves in. It's crazy, but he plays. It's like code switching is like literally happens in like an instant, like you said, Connor, right? It's like you see this shift on his face, and it's like the like facial embodiment of the code switching.
Yep.
Yeah. And it speaks to his, epic skill as a performer to just
be his talent. Yeah.
To show us that with nothing but his eyes.
Right.
Brilliant. Scene. What is the best scene of Get Out? I will start. It's just weird for me to introduce myself. For me, it is the scene where Chris discovers the photos. That's the moment where the other shoe drops and you realize just how fucked he really is.
Yep.
Just the box of her, what's her character? Rose. Just with pictures of so many black partners, and the look of it on his face of just like, this doesn't add up. He almost like he does not want to believe it. It's not fear, it's not anger, it's just like, this can't really be happening.
Well, and he doesn't totally until he sees the last two, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the last two. And then when he closes the door and Rose is right there, the way she's standing, it's almost like she's been standing there the whole fucking time, watching him look through the box. She gets off on this. And then from there we get into the, get the keys. It's so masterfully done. I love when thrillers evolve into horror movies. It's like you can usually pinpoint one exact scene where that shift happens, and for me, that was the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, great one.
Okay.
Great one.
Guess I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know. There are so many good scenes, but for me, I don't know. The silent auction part stood out for me this time around. Maybe because of some of the things that I touched on earlier about it, but just it hit different. I think before I would watch it and I was like, all right, like I get what's going on, but this part kind of boring. But then when I actually did another watch recently, like this week, I was like, oh snap! Like this is pretty intense. Like because they're all performing. They're every single person that's there at that quote unquote party, really the auction, is literally putting on a performance to kind of to steer Chris astray, to make it seem as though like, oh, this is just normal, whatever, old people meeting in the fancy way kind of thing. And it's not. I mean, even when he goes upstairs and everyone gets quiet to like hear where is he going, like to actually have ears on him. Right. So especially the silent auction was just like, it was quiet. I think it was one of the most quiet scenes of the movie, and it was the most loud and harrowing and like intense, scary aspects of this film for me. So I think the silence really added to like, oh, just how creepy it was. I mean, because they're literally talking about selling this person's body, but doing it in a way that is so manipulative. So if he were to come back, oh, we're just playing bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that really stood out to me this time.
It's that whole like actions speak louder than words thing manifest, like, and I love even when they're, talking to Chris in the garden party, like no one's being, subtle about any of this. No one's trying to be, like, they're not hiding anything really. They're pretty vocal about like, they're saying outlandish shit, making him very uncomfortable, but they're so confident in their ability to pull this off that like, they don't fucking care.
Yeah.
It's Ugh.
I mean, they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. Good pick. Very good pick.
Yeah. Okay. So mine is actually a moment quite close to that one, right before actually. So it's the conversation between Stephen Root and Daniel Kaluuya, the blind art dealer, and it, yeah, for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, Stephen Root is so good, but in this movie and in this scene, and just in anything, but it does seem like there's a moment where he's obviously very complimentary of his work. He knows, who he is as a photographer. I think because he's blind, I think there's this moment where Daniel Kaluuya's character, he lets his guard down. He lets his guard down because he's like, oh, this guy might not actually because he can't actually see me. So he doesn't have the same, prejudices that some of these other people do. So like, I can actually let my guard down and have a conversation with this guy. Plus, like, he knows my work and we have, similar tastes and things like that. So that's a really cool, I mean, they're both just so good playing off each other. And I think there's also this like, this ease that he has all of a sudden. It's like, oh man, finally I can like be with someone who's not just looking at me and like judging me based on what I look like. It's just like my work and who I, what I care about. And then that's what makes it so cruel that he's the one that eventually actually like wins the auction. And then that scene kind of goes hand in hand. The scene when he's kind of explained the procedure to him, there's just this like dead blank look on Chris's face of just like, man, like I can't believe this happened. Like you too, right? Like you two who can't even see, and even you like have the same like racist ideas that these other people do. And it's just like, it's really like heartbreaking. That seems brutal.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Nobody plays a blind Southern gent like Stephen Root.
Yeah. I love Stephen Root, man. He's great. So versatile,
Mm-hmm. He's one of my favorite character actors. He pops up in so much shit. The dude, I love he's got a great eye for scripts. He really does.
He does.
Yeah, good choice. Some runner-ups. I love Chris's escape, just taking down the whole damn family. That's very satisfying. Yeah.
We haven't mentioned the term sunken place yet.
I was just about to say, like, we didn't even touch on the hypnosis scene. So yeah, take it away.
I mean, it's just such a crazy concept and really like cleverly done and framed, and how it uses, like, he zooms out. He's watching him on a TV screen. Like, all of that is just really well done. It shows off his filmmaking chops. I think for one of the first times in the movie.
Well, I love Kaluuya's performance during the hypnosis scene. Like, his words are like, this is nothing. You're not getting to me. But his eyes are sobbing. It's like, it's such a brilliant depiction of hypnosis.
Yeah.
And Catherine Keener's a fucking star. My God, is she so good?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's almost like the way he's crying while still kind of smiling. It like reminded me of like hard rain on like a sunny day. You know what I mean? It's just like, this doesn't even make sense. It's like, this kind of crazy visual.
It's also wild how like the term sunken place was so quickly adopted into pop culture lexicon.
For sure.
Like, I've heard it in a dozen other things since 2017, and I usually stuff does not take hold that quickly. So props to Peele for pulling that off.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know if it's necessarily a scene, but then also interesting how no one really talks about this. How like the what's her name, Rose, was basically like being pimped out by the family. Like, you see that people she's been with. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, like, like, because in the video she's a child. So did they just come up with this concept? You know what? When you're of age, go to it.
Well, I bet it's like a grooming thing. Like, mom did it, grandma did it. Now it's, your turn. When there's a girl born in the family, you have a job to do. And she clearly has no problem pulling this off. Like, she is enjoying this.
Yeah, and these are long cons too, right? These are not like this isn't happening, of course, like 2 weeks. She's in these like months long relationships with these people. Yeah, it's like man, just hey, your purpose is just for this too, right? Like even she's being used to like the nth degree.
Yeah.
And we can go so deep on this because I'm just thinking about like patriarchy, and then how like white feminism is a thing, and then how that whole entity plays into it. It's a whole stuff. It's a whole multifaceted, multi-layered thing. I don't even know if Peele like had those intentions, but it's definitely there this idea of like white womanhood kind of being, I don't know, like this pure thing, this like, and like there's no way that she could possibly betray me like this. Like, if maybe the whole family doesn't like me, but she loves me, so I know she's going to give me the keys, kind of thing. Like, I know I can trust her, kind of. That has been like a repetitive narrative since, the dawn of America, to be honest. Like, the whole movie, The Birth of a Nation, it like literally encompasses around that. So,
well, no, go there. I mean, yeah. What other themes did you see in there that like, that plays off of, like, whether intentional or not? I mean, like what else did you see there?
Well, like, as I was saying, just kind of like playing on white femininity, and like white womanhood kind of being this like coveted, sought after, like idyllic thing to have, especially in terms of Black men. Again, like the history of our country, especially with the movie Birth of a Nation, was like founded on like this fear, the hypersexuality, but the fear also of Black people, especially Black men, in terms of we cannot let them have our women. Our women are pure. They're not like those Black women. Those Black women are scum. Like, we could breed them. We could do whatever we want with them, make them a lot of babies, whatever. They're trash. But like, our white women are sacred. Our white men are like top of the patriarchy. Like, they are the backbone, the crux of this country. And if we let Black men infiltrate our women, then we're losing a piece of that patriarchy, because we need to maintain that control as well. And so it's just funny how this family structure uses Rose, even if she is doing it willingly, uses her as the person to bring in victims, so that everyone else can inherit and take pieces of their bodies as well.
Well, that also comes back to subverting expectations, because now in this scenario, the pure white woman is the villain, the monster, trapping the innocent Black victims. And it's interesting. Birth of a Nation, that fucked up movie caused so much irreparable damage to this country. It really did. That fucker it brought back the Klan like so much. Yeah, I despise that movie so much.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say though, like I'm not saying this to be like, oh, Rose in this film is like she's the true villain. Like they're all culpable. They're all in this shit together.
Clearly. Yeah.
Like this is a joint practice.
But
everyone has their role, I think, is essentially what I'm trying to highlight.
In terms of like relating to the protagonist, like Rose is our villain of the movie in that
that's true
capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but there's a reading. I mean, this is I would not agree with this reading, but there's a reading that someone could make of like Rose also being a victim. Because, hey, this thing has been forced upon you, whether you like it or not. You're the one who has to go do this thing. We're forcing you to do this thing for our gain, for our family's gain, whatever, And I'm sure at some point, like you said, willingly she's doing it. But I'm sure there's somebody who wants to make that reading. Again, I disagree with that reading, but that you could at least make the argument for it, right?
I've got a reading for you.
Uh-oh.
So I took a class in my undergrad on it's called the Post-Human in Film, where we looked at like artificial intelligence and aliens that have evolved to identify as human in film. And we ended the term with this movie because how like I think Rose might be more willing to sacrifice her body for the good of the family because there's always going to be another one. Like there's no sacred humanity left in them because they've abandoned that by doing this crazy ass surgery where they can basically just live forever. It's immortality. It's a complete abandonment of humanity. And they're almost like a new like race of almost devolved humans. And there's a way to look at this film as like what, to kind of a human versus non-human capacity. It was a very fascinating film to end that class with. It was like, made us all think like, whoa, holy shit. So I don't know.
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, when you're able to like remove your empathy and disassociate a group of people from being like actually human in order to like extract their physical being, but to discard the rest of like what makes them a human being. I mean, like that's essentially what it is. You are looking at them as a thing. So I mean, it's not too far off.
I mean, if there was like, if you could perform a brain transplant and put your brain into somebody else's body, whether or not they're conscious or not, are you going to have the same connection to your physical being? Because what's sacred about it? If I lose a hand or something, fuck, I'll go get another body. Like I get cancer, fuck it, I'll go to rent a brain and get a new one. It's like if that concept was introduced into life, how quickly would society like completely change in terms of how we view like our bodies?
Yeah, I mean that that theory, that thing you're just throwing out there is the same that Be Right Back, that Black Mirror episode, is dealing with, right? The like, yeah, let's rebuild this person based on their social media profiles and like recordings we have of them. But that's not human, right? It's like that's not
well,
yeah.
What is human? That's the ultimate question.
Yeah. Like there's no authenticity there, right? It's like this is just a copy of something. It's like so on there are times, there are moments where it feels like that person is actually there. And I'm sure for those moments that feels good. But overall, and we got into this with her, right, Connor? It's the same concepts. Like I'm sure at moments, talking to this operating system, like you can feel like you're communicating with a real individual, but you're not, though. Like the bottom line is you are not.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to interpret this thing. It really is fascinating. Cool.
Yeah.
This was a great choice, Adam, really.
No, I'm really glad I got to talk about this in depth because it's like I don't do it like that often in this movie, but I love to. I mean, there's just so many tentacles. There's so many tentacles to the story and so many ways you can go. I mean, like Mysia, you've referenced that already. Like you could go you go so deep and so far back with some of the ideas that he's playing with, and he fits it into this hour and 40-minute movie. It's like it's actually pretty brisk, like it's surprising. Sometimes when you try to fit this many ideas, it really can get convoluted, and this one just does not. I mean, it really is sharp and it moves with like a real pace. That's very impressive.
Oh yeah, no fat. This is very much like every bit of story was necessary.
For sure.
It doesn't bog us down. It's like we don't get inundated with, a bunch of backstory that just confuses us. it just tells us as much as we need to know to stay invested. And
Yeah.
that's what a great movie should do.
Yeah. And like you said, Connor, like every single thing was purposeful. Every single thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to shout out 3 performers real quick that we have not mentioned yet. So Marcus Henderson, who played Walter, and Betty Gabriel, who played Georgina, the house, I mean, I guess they would probably turn them the help, right? That's like might be what this white family might call them, which is absurd. But they're both really good in this, and I think really like have that kind of like creeped out, like kind of like just not, I don't know, this like this glazed over, look about them. And I love the touch of Betty Gabriel's character, like touching her head all the time. And at first you're just like, why is she doing that? And then later you see there's the scar. It's like, this body's been taken. And the scene when the Marcus, so Walter, the Marcus Henderson character is sprinting, like just running, like you're just like, man, it's like, what is going on? And then later you understand it's like it goes hand in hand with the Jesse Owens comment, and then the I wasn't able to like run that fast, like I'm gonna take advantage of this, black body that I now have and be able to like feel what it's like to, have that kind of power. Really like really dark ship. I think they're both really good. And then Caleb Landry Jones, dude, I despise him like so much. Like, I mean, it's obviously it's a testament to how good he does as an actor. But like when he's on the screen, I mean, he creeps me out. Like to know, like I can't even like I need him off the screen the second I see him. It's like I can't even deal with this guy. And like this guy is at, I'm not gonna say an actual college, at American, a Southwest American university right now, right? There are 10 of those guys in like some ridiculous frat at an American, a Southwest American university right this second. And it's like,
I saw him on BART a few days ago. It's like,
there you go. Yeah. I don't even need to specify which part of the country, right? It's like, that's, you see it up there. Yeah. So I'm just like, man, this guy is kind of like the most dangerous type.
Yeah.
Well, he's he's like, if they all had like roles, Dad's the mind, he's, Jeremy's the fucking fist. Like he's, he's dangerous. Like they're all dangerous, but this guy's gonna lash.
I would argue that Dad's the face.
The face. Okay.
I'd argue Rose is the face.
Oh, that's fair. Because she's like the first person you encounter, right? In this whole like enterprise.
He's the surgeon.
Yeah.
So he's the brain. Mom is the soul.
I guess to get into your mind.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where this is at this point. Whatever.
Well, and shout out Bradley Whitford. We haven't really said him yet either. He's just so good. He's so good in this.
He plays smarmy so fucking well. Just this like slimy.
Yeah.
You almost want to.
Did you catch when he's first giving him the tour? Why did you hear the reason why he said they had to seal up the basement?
Refresh me.
It's because of black mold.
Yeah.
That's why they had to seal up the basement, which reminded me of the Key and Peele sketch, the Black Ice sketch. Have y'all seen that? They talk about like, how like news anchors will say black ice. It's like, oh yeah, like be careful out there. Like driving down the road, there's a lot of black ice. Like it's like so. It's like that's such a Jordan Peele line. Like he wrote that.
Yeah. I love
like the racist zombie one. That was hilarious.
Yes. Well, and talk about code switching.
That was actually funny.
Talk about code switching and Obama, the scene of the different handshakes, right? Like where like Obama is like going down the line, he's like dapping up all the black characters, and then like the white, it's like, hey, how you doing? Like just a quick little handshake. That's so good. That is so good. That's tying together again like this movie and the creator and all of it. But also Lil Rel, what do y'all think about him in this movie?
We need him. He's our anchor to a better world. He's the, like you said, you need the laughs from time to time because this shit gets bleak often. And he's he's the guy he's the conspiracy nut friend who turned out to be right the whole time, who is like the best friend in the world because he fucking, went to save him.
Yeah.
We should all be grateful to have a friend like Rod.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I don't know, for me, like culturally, in my experience, like I can be like that. A lot of my friends and family are like that, where we're like, bro, you see this thing. I know this thing is happening. Like, it's to this. You're like, nah, that's not real. And it happens. You're like, what the fuck did I tell you? Told you the whole time. So it's also just funny. Like, it's a comedic relief. But again, it's also like a lived experience thing where people are like, when you're just having normal conversation with your family or friends, like, you really gonna do that shit, or like, you better watch out with that person. Like, I've had many a conversation like this with so many people in my life, and those reactions very on point. I mean, I similar reactions to people after watching the movie. So
yeah, it's the right amount of Lil Rel, I think, because like I think when he's like the star of a movie, like he's been in a couple of times, I'm like, you know, this maybe doesn't know how to like quite carry a movie, but he's so good in this role, like as like a role player, you know, like coming in. I mean, yeah, he's real comic relief. He's like, yeah, he is like a genuinely funny dude. But also, yeah, that he is that guy in his life that like, man, I knew something was up, you know, it's just like that. He kind of has like the bullshit detector, you know. Although he does not have it with Rose, right? Like he actually like when he's on the phone, like he wants to, like he said he probably shouldn't go to their house or whatever like that. But like with Rose specifically, and it's just that's just another sign of how like, you know, maybe to your point, Mysia, about the kind of like the like white woman kind of being pure. He's like, oh no, she wouldn't do that. But like maybe the dad would. Maybe the dad would, right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, she wouldn't do that. But yes, because yeah, he wants to be on the phone with her. He messes around with her. He has this like jokey relationship with her. He's not suspicious of her. It's her family.
Right.
Well, I'm sure part of her like, infiltration game plan is like, get buddy buddy with the best friend. Like
Yep,
she's got it down pat. Like it's a science to her at this point.
it is.
Ooh, it's fucking serial killer mentality. It's wild.
No, it is. It is. Did you guys see this movie in theaters?
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Go ahead.
I liked it. I mean, I can't remember. I feel like when I saw this, I was in North Carolina for undergrad. So very different experience watching it there. I don't know how it would have been watching it here. But over there it was like it was an event. It was a thing to behold.
Hmm. And so like what was I'm more asking, yeah, necessarily obviously I know now we all really like this movie, but like what was the atmosphere like? What was the like how were the reactions to different things? What was the demographics of like your crowd like?
Well, it just based on where I was at the time,
Mhm.
like North Carolina, larger like student-centric area. It was a lot of Black people primarily.
Okay.
That was the majority of the demographic that were in the theater at the time. So it was very much like felt like a joint experience. Everyone's emotion, even if I wasn't admitting it, it felt like, yep, he said what I was thinking. Like, so
You were all Lil Rels, right? Like I told you, yeah.
Yep. So it was a lot of like presence there. Like we were very engaged. There was a lot of interaction with it. And then at the end, it was kind of like standing ovation. It was like, oh yes. And then post movie, it was like, no, watch out for these people because I try to do some shit.
Or else we're next. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Gallows humor right there. I mean I asked that because I saw like a really diverse crowd. So I was in St. Charles. I was living in St. Charles at the time, just outside of St. Louis. And Connor, our brother Isaiah, was visiting. So my dad brought Isaiah up to visit. Austin and I were living together at the time. And we all saw it together. So it was four of us all together. And the crowd was super diverse. And the way people reacted differently to like, especially the end when the TSA car, cop car comes up was so fascinating. Like, and like my dad's reaction to it, as opposed to like my brother's, right, who's Black, like it was really fascinating. And then the crowd's reaction too, like what some people laughed at, other people didn't find so funny, and some people thought was absolutely hilarious. Other people were like, oh, I don't really get it. Like, why would that be funny? It was really interesting. I think that's such a skill to create a movie like that like so many different people can have so many different types of reactions from. So I was curious to hear what kind of like, audience you had, because I think it is probably a different experience based on what type of people you're watching the movie with.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I saw this on a Saturday matinee with not a lot of people, and I never really pay attention to the demographic when I'm going to see a movie. I'm more in tune with the film, like, but I don't know. That could be something I should start.
Well, yeah, I normally don't care at all, but I think with a movie like that, it was just like it was something, an extra layer I noticed. Yeah, it doesn't really like normally it doesn't like really matter, what type of crowd you're seeing it with, but yeah, because of the subject matter of the movie itself, I remember like noting it, and I remember noting the reactions to a lot of stuff, and I think Mysia used the word was it like concentrated or locked in on something, like that's how ours was too. It's like everyone was like super focused. Like I just remember it being like this very like everyone was kind of up for it, like we're up for this movie today. Which was cool.
Yeah, for sure. With that, let's take a look at what Letterboxd has to say about this on our final segment. What's in the box?
What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
Out of box.
4.2 out of 5. Phenomenal. It's
great.
It's a 4 out of 5 for me. What about y'all?
5.
Figured.
Same.
Figured.
I mean, just in rewatching it, it was just like,
Yep, I have no doubts.
Connor, like everything mattered. Like every scene had a purpose. And rewatching, I was like, oh, that's why this is so good.
Yeah, I agree. I'll probably bump it up. This is one that gets bumped up pretty much every time I watch it. So a lot of the reviews, especially since now I'm going straight for the jugular with the negative as hell reviews, so much racist shit. So I weaved through that and found 5 here that I think are either justified or amusing. Is it 5? Yeah, it's 5. Okay, this first one is from Memely. I don't know. It's 4.5 stars. My favorite commentary that I've read about this movie was from Ryan Johnson, who said, quote, I love that if the movie Get Out existed in the world of Get Out, the parents would have told Chris how much they love Get Out.
That is, spot on.
They would have been like, yeah, great movie, great social commentary, Chris.
By the way, yeah. And they would have slid it in like really early too, right? Yeah, like, oh, by the way, like just so you know, I'm a good one,
Oh my God.
Ridiculous.
That's exactly what he would have fucking said. I'm one of the good ones. Oh my God. This one's from Lil Mighty Angel. And this just pissed me off. 0.5 star. Terrifying, but I don't enjoy scary movies. So don't fucking watch it.
Yeah. What a waste of time. 0.5 star. Like, what a waste of time. Even
I hate these people who like just stray out of their wheelhouse into something they don't like and then give a review that's negative and comprised entirely of I don't like this genre. It's like, well then stop it. Get out of here. We don't want you. Ugh.
Yeah, don't review it. Like,
don't review it.
Sure, but don't. Why are you reviewing on it?
Yes.
Boo. Ugh.
Okay.
This next one's from Joshi Pereira. 0.5 star. I thought this movie would have something to say about something, or at least be clever or mysterious in any type of way. I was wrong. Just another unnecessary and predictable horror snooze fest relying on gore and a weird cult of people doing shit for no apparent reason. How about we try give things a bit of substance? 0.5 point for gratuitous comeuppance. Did he watch the same movie?
I was gonna say he has to be a troll. That's a troll.
Did he take like a 50-minute bathroom break? I mean, what the hell? How do you get that from this movie?
Well, or it's just like outrageously ignorant,
Yeah, like you got to have zero like knowledge of society or like just complete lack of self-awareness to grab nothing from this movie. You really have to. I mean, come on.
I don't know. I feel like this has to be a troll. There's no I can't possibly believe that there's somebody out there who could watch something and be like, there's nothing to say. That's Seinfeld. That's what Seinfeld is there for.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be said in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
This, not so much.
And it's in Seinfeld, it's intentionally not.
Yes.
They're intentionally not trying to say anything. Yeah, it's like, and that's something we can actually say that about. Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, how could you possibly not get like any sense of like a theme or like like this is trying to like get a point across? Like that's just wild.
And also reliance on gore, like maybe a little bit towards the end, but that's it.
I was like really the only gory scene is the deer.
Yeah,
the deer, the head cutting open because you can see through glass.
True.
I mean, it's minor, but it's there. Yeah. And then the chick getting shot.
Yeah. That's
and then the grandma getting hit because she was in the car and he ran into the tree. That's
yeah.
Oh, and in the hand, the thing through the hand, the letter opener.
True, but none of that screams reliance on
No,
gore.
not at all, because it's all at the end.
It's all the same, in the same like 5-minute span. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like this guy started watching the movie, left, did something else, came back at the end of the movie, and was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. That's the only explanation.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
imagining a guy like at his apartment, like with his girlfriend or something, and she's watching it, and he like pops in for like little 5-minute segments, and it's like, man, this movie has nothing to say. It's just like, what? Yeah, like how could you possibly? And then one of his 5-minute segments is the only like gory segment of the movie.
Yeah.
This next one, very similar. This is from I Like Film 17, and judging by your review, I don't think you like film as much as you think you do. Also half a star. To be honest, I wasn't paying attention the whole time. It was during a Halloween party, but it was just too weird, boring, and not captivating. Yeah, because you weren't fucking watching it.
Again, just don't review it. Just don't review it. It's not that hard. It's actually easier to not review it. It's like you would have.
It's so easy to just shut the fuck up and move on to a movie. Like you didn't watch it. It was on when you were in the house. That does not mean you watched it.
That's so crazy.
All right.
People, I hate them. This last one's from Bell. This is 5 stars, and it's stupid, but it made me chuckle. If this was in Scotland, it would be Get Out.
What the
Get Out. Yep, you're right.
and they'd all be wearing kilts. Like, what is this?
5 stars though. I appreciate it.
You can't go in that house.
Wow.
I would happily give to a Kickstarter who would want to remake this film entirely in like Scotland.
Yo, but the way that you sound, it's just giving me Shrek. If Shrek was telling
Yeah.
cool, get out. Like,
Yeah.
it's not okay. Wow. The internet is special.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of what Letterboxd has to say. It's mostly overwhelmingly positive, but there are just a lot of trolls, a lot of people who are like, this movie's just nothing but woke bullshit and shit like that. And that just that has no place in a positive conversation.
No, it does not. Half a star. Like you couldn't get 1 star out of this movie. Like even if you were just like, man, that's like really well shot, like that bit there is like a really good piece of filmmaking. It's like, yeah, like even if you like hate the themes or like you're just racist or whatever, it's like you can't like you couldn't find like 1 star worth of like, oh man, Bradley Whitford was really good. Like I don't know. That's just like that's crazy to me.
Or you're gonna be like
Logically about it.
You're gonna be like, I didn't even like that movie I heard 5 minutes of at the Halloween party. Like
Yeah. What did you just say, Mysia, before that?
I was saying you're thinking too logical about this. Like,
no, I am. I need to just drop it. Yeah, this person is not like an actual person. Like it's just
No.
No, what was the one person's name? It was like Film Critic 17. Or
I like film 17. Yeah.
Maybe they just mean like I like only 17 films. And like it's not this one of this is not one of them.
Can you imagine having that like cut off like at 15? You're like, I have seen the 17 films I like. I'm
I'm done. That's it. Nothing will catch these. So.
If I met that person, I would probably like snap. I can't imagine. Like I have watched this amount of films. I like these movies. I'm good.
And that's it. Oh, no, crazy.
Unbelievable. I can't wait to see what next week's film brings out on Letterboxd. I that's gonna be
interesting. Oh man.
Yeah. This was a blast. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Filmgazm Productions. If you want to suggest films for us to check out, you can email us at filmgazm@gmail.com or send us a message through the socials. Check out our Letterboxd accounts for daily reviews. You search for me at Connor95, and in my friends list, you can find the rest of the team. Check out the website, filmgazm.com, where I have a link to that letterbox. You can also find articles, trailers of upcoming films, and every episode of our show. If you'd like to become a monthly donor to Filmgazm Productions, click on the link in the episode description. From there, click on Support This Podcast. You can choose to donate $1 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month, and all donations go right back into the show. Thanks to the entire Filmgazm team for their contributions. Thanks to Cooley Cow for our awesome theme music. Thanks to you for checking it out. Next time, we go back to the Tarantino well with my number 2, the 2012 Western epic Django Unchained. I've been wanting to do a podcast on this film since the show started, and I can't wait to dig into this divisive, disturbing, and ultimately unforgettable homage to Tarantino's favorite Western classics. This movie, whew, I love it to death, but it is a fucking difficult watch. But it's so good. It's so good.
Really interesting that these are back to back.
It just, that we didn't plan that shit. It just worked out. Two completely different lists.
Just getting deeper and deeper into it, huh?
And then it's Scientology, Facebook, and jazz. So yeah. This was so fun. Thanks, guys, for coming out for this one.
Anytime.
Take it easy. Keep watching movies, and we will see you next time.